Welcome back, dear students. In the earlier session, we were talking about the various kinds of translations, and in that, we discussed first one was word for word translation, and literal translation, conceptual translation, as well as free translation. In this session, we want to discuss some more other types of translations. Yes, dear students, the fifth one is that is elaborate translation. So, what do you mean by elaborate translation? So, it has generally been observed that a translated text is longer than the original text in the source language. So, elaborate translation is a kind of translation which is generally is a longer one, which is an expanded one, elaborated one. The title itself signifies, it is very significant that it is a more longer, more expanded one, elaborated one than the source language. Why it is so? Yes, because in fact all good translations are somewhat longer than the original. Whatever the translated works you come across, generally speaking, the which are considered as the very good translations are generally are usually are longer than the original, because let us remember what that it does not mean that all longer translations are necessarily good. So it is not a hard and fast rule that all the good translations are generally longer translations. Yes, but what we are saying is that because of the peculiar characteristics of languages and differences in cultural background, a translated text consumes more words and sentences to communicate the same message which had been put in a lesser number of words or sentences in the original language. For example, if you want to translate a novel from Charles Dickens or a poem by T.S. Eliot from English to Kannada language, it is generally will be a longer, because the cultural aspects of the English European language need to be translated in the target language. That is why the translated text is usually generally more longer than the original text, because the original text as the target text is for the other cultural readers, other type of other cultural readers, as they are not aware of the original culture. So that's why the cultural aspects or the other aspects has to be translated into the second language or the target language. That is why the elaborate translation is more longer than the original text. Yes. We have some reasons for such expansion or elaboration in translation. First, a translator has to make explicit, he has to explain, he has to state clearly certain things which are implicit or understood in the original text. As I just said, he has to explicit the cultural nuances of the original text. This may become necessary because a translator may have to give the background or context of the message to the readers. The translator has to give some introductory or background or the message or the concept of the original text to the readers. So that is why it is more longer. Such a background or context is generally known to the readers in the original language. The original readers or the original language or the original text doesn't more explicit, or we need not be more stative in the original text. So then this act of making certain things explicit necessarily leads to an elaborate translation. So this leads for the elaborate translation. If the translator does not clearly state certain aspects of the message, it may lead to a translation which may not be easily understood by the readers. What will happen if the translator does not does not state the certain aspects of the message of the original text? What will happen? The translated text may not be clearly understood by the readers. So it may also at sometimes lead to a misreading or wrong understanding of the text. So that is why the translator needs to give background, cultural aspects, other aspects of the original text. This happens in the elaborate translation. So next one is abridged translation. So what do you mean by abridged translation? Here, however, sometimes it may so happen that a translated text is actually shorter than the original text. That is the exactly contrast to the elaborate translation. So what happens here? That is to say that the translated text is an abridged form of the original text. Why it happens? Because the main reasons for such shortening or abridgment of the text is the structural form of the target language. In the earlier kind of translation, we saw that the translator has to explicit, he has to state some cultural aspects, other aspects of the original text or the original language. But here in the kind of abridged translation, it is more shorter, it is more shorter or abridgment of the text, because the structural form of the target language is the main cause, main reason. So that is to say, the sentence structure in the target language may sometimes demand the omission of a word or expression. For example, sentence structures in Kannada and English are different. So here the translator has to make little more adjustments in translating such texts. For example, he has to omit, there must be a demand of omission of a word or expression in the target language because of the structural sentence structures varies from one language to another language, or sentence structure of the target language. If the translator does not omit or leave out such words or expressions, the sentence may appear to be incorrect. If he does not follow this kind of omission or leave out of such words or expressions or phrases, what will happen? The sentence may appear to be incorrect in abridged translation. So in this kind of abridged translation, it is more of shorter in length than the original text, which is exactly contrast to the elaborate translation. Next one is back translation. So what is meant by back translation? It is also called as retranslation by some. Some scholars opine that this is also called as retranslation. So when a translated text becomes the basic text for a translation back into the original language, this activity is called back translation. Because why that happens? See, when a translated text becomes the basic text for a translation, so back translation happens. So means it is also called as retranslation. It is generally used by the translators to evaluate the uh, translated text, how much faithful and how much uh, it yeah, it is faithful to the original text by the passing of the time. So it evaluates the uh, faithfulness of the translated text. That is why it is done by the scholars or the experts or the translators. So back translation is generally not meant for readers of the source language, because the original is already available to them in their language. It is more for the target uh, language speakers, I mean readers, because the original is already available in the original text. So back translation is generally undertaken by the scholars or the experts who want to measure the distance between an original text and its translation. As I already told you, dear students, how much it keeps uh, the original flavor, or how much it is faithful to the original. So to measure, to evaluate, to analyze this thing, the experts or the scholars make use of this back translation or retranslation. That is to say, scholars undertake back translation to find out whether the translation faithfully communicates the message of the original text. To find out, to evaluate, to analyze how much the translated work communicates the message of the original text. For that, we can go for the back translation. And the next one and the last one is so for the back translation, we have here some examples. For example, another related reason for undertaking back translation is to identify the areas in which translators have special difficulties. Yeah, this is the reason for the back translations. Means translators or experts or the scholars can find out what are the new, special, unique, particular, peculiar kind of difficulties. So they will go for the back translation. For example, translating cultural specific words and expressions can be one such area of difficult. For example, culture specific words and expressions. How cultural specific words can be translated, yes, from one language into another language, and on the passing of the time, how the culture specific words are also changes. Yes, so to observe this, back translation helps the translators or the experts. Yes, idiomatic expressions, proverbs, similes all fall under this category. Yes, these generally differ from one language to another and hence they pose special problems for a translator. This is a very difficult kind of translation where idiomatic expressions, proverbs, similes are all very different from one language to another. So that's why back translation always helps the translator in identifying all these uh, nuances. Yes, the translator then may modify earlier translations in case he discovers that the earlier attempt does not faithfully transfer the meaning of the original. So experts can come to know whether the translated work is accurate, exact, it is very faithful or it is not faithful or it is incorrect. So to understand this they go for the back translation. Okay, dear students, we want to discuss the last kind of translation, that is machine translation. So in today's, in the 21st century, everything is machinery. Machines have become part and parcel of our life. If you go to bank or if you go to ATMs, machines will you can draw money or cash from the machines. Or if you go to malls, shops, yes, you will find exit or entrance doors will be operated by the machines. So machines have become part and parcel of our life. Hence, looking around at our day-to-day life, we are amazed at the use of machines. So in every way we use machines. Yes, we cannot lead a life without the help of machines in the 21st century especially. So extensive use of the machines in our daily lives, that in some areas machines have replaced human beings. Yes, machines even they go to the extent of replacing the human beings. For example, computers have replaced human beings. Yes, in everywhere we can find this. So for example, machines not only guard the entrance and exit gates of factories and offices, but they also record the arrival and departure timings of individual employees. For example, with the help of biometric, we can record the attendance of the particular employees in a office. So even computers or machines have also been pressed into service for carrying out translation. Even the use of or the adaptations of computers or the machines are also being used in translations. First experiments in this regard began towards the end of the 1940s in the Soviet Union and Great Britain. So first attempt was made in Soviet Union and Great Britain in the end of 1940s. A landmark was achieved on 7th January 1954 when a computer IBM 701 gave a live demonstration in New York, translating a text from Russian into English. For the first time, a 7th January 1954, when a computer IBM 701 gave a live demonstration in New York, translating a text from Russian language into English language. So the research in machine translation has progressed very much since those days. So with the help of with the help of program, with the help of two language the two languages dictionaries are put into the machines or computers, and yes, with the help of machines or computers we can have the machine translation, but that may not hold good, as the human imagination cannot be replaced by any kind of machines or computers at all. So these are the drawbacks of the machine translations. With this much of discussion, dear students, I want to wind up my discussion of various kinds of translation. Yes, we have discussed various types of translation in this session. I want to wind up my class. Thank you one and all.